Too big. Just sit tight, the Korean Mafia said calm to the black woman right before she realized what was under her. The neon lights of Busan blurred into streaks as Amara ran, her heels clicking wildly against the wet harbor pavement. The night smelled of diesel, ocean salt, and trouble, the kind you only realized too late you'd walked into. She didn't belong here. She wasn't even supposed to still be out. All she did was take a wrong turn behind a nightclub. Now 3 men were chasing her, yelling in a language she didn't understand but instinct told her. Run. Her breath came fast, fogging in the cold night air. She hugged her purse to her chest and darted into the nearest open space, an old warehouse with flickering lights and shadows that moved like ghosts. She skidded inside. The moment she stepped in, everything went silent. Too silent. No wind. No footsteps. Just a presence. A dangerous one. And then, she crashed into something solid. Someone. A hand shot out fast, steadying her by the waist before she could fall backward. His touch was firm, warm, and unnervingly confident. Amara looked up. A man stood in front of her, tall, immaculate, terrifying in his stillness. A fitted black shirt hugged his broad shoulders, sleeves rolled up to reveal veins and a tattoo along his arm. His jawline was sharp enough to cut glass. His eyes a cold silver that saw through her, into her, around her. Kang Jae-won. Even she, a foreigner, recognized the name. The quiet one. The strategist. The Mafia's calm storm. She didn't have time to speak. Her knees buckled from exhaustion and she lost her balance. Falling. He reached for her. But instead of landing in his arms, she dropped backward onto something hard and metallic behind him, the impact rattling through her spine. Her hand slapped down on cold steel. Jae-won glanced over his shoulder at her, his brow lifting slightly. And in a calm, low voice that made her pulse jump, he said, "Too big, just sit tight." Confused, she shifted, feeling the massive rectangular shape beneath her. What am I sitting on?" His answer was a quiet, controlled sigh, the kind of sound predators make when they accept the inevitable. "A crate," he said. But not just any crate. Before she could ask what he meant, the warehouse door slammed open behind her. The same men who chased her rushed in, weapons drawn. Amara gasped and tried to stand, but Jae-won placed one hand on her thigh, barely touching but enough to freeze her in place. "Don't move," he murmured. "They'll shoot if they realize what you're sitting on." Her blood ran ice cold. She swallowed. "What's in it?" His eyes didn't leave the intruders as he answered. "Enough to start a war." Her heart dropped. The intruders yelled. Guns cocked. Jae-won stepped forward, shielding her with his body, his stance relaxed, almost bored, as though he'd done this 1,000 times. "Stay still," he said again, voice like velvet over steel. "I won't let them touch you." For the first time since she ran, she believed someone. The men shouted something in Korean. Jae-won smirked, rolled his neck once and whispered without turning. "When I move, do not follow. Just breathe." "Why?" "Because the second you stand," he said softly, "this entire building becomes your enemy." And then, the first gunshot shattered the silence. The gunshot exploded through the warehouse, echoing off steel beams and concrete walls. Amara flinched so hard she nearly rolled off the crate, but Jae-won's arm shot back, steadying her without even looking. His touch was brief, controlled. A silent command. "Stay still." The 3 intruders stalked closer, weapons raised, eyes darting between Jae-won and the massive crate she unknowingly sat on. Her breath hitched. What do they want?" she whispered. "They want what you're sitting on," he answered, voice eerily calm for someone staring down barrels of guns. "What's in it?" "Nothing you should ever see." One of the men shouted, pointing directly at her. He had recognized that she was on the crate, that she was now the variable no one expected. Jae-won's jaw tightened. His stance shifted, shoulders loose, weight leaned slightly forward. A predator preparing to strike. "You brought trouble to me tonight," he murmured. Amara's throat tightened. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he interrupted softly. "But now you're in my world. And once someone steps into it." His gaze slid briefly to her, intense, unreadable. "They don't walk out easily." Before she could ask what that meant, the intruders fired. Jae-won moved first. A blur of motion. A twist. A strike. He kicked the nearest gunman's wrist, sending the weapon flying across the floor. The other 2 scrambled, shouting orders, but Jae-won had already grabbed Amara's arm and pulled her off the crate in one smooth motion. Her body collided with his chest, his warmth. His heartbeat steady even as violence erupted around them. "Come," he said, gripping her hand tightly. He sprinted toward the back corridor, pulling her with him. The world spun, her fear pulsing through her veins. Why are they after me?" she cried breathlessly as they ran. "They're not," he replied. They're after what you looked like you were protecting. But I wasn't protecting anything. You were sitting on their prize. That's enough. Gunshots cracked behind them, bullets sparking against steel beams. Amara shrieked as one ricocheted near her ankle. Without hesitation, J1 swept her behind him, shielding her body completely, absorbing the danger as if it meant nothing. Her heart hammered. His body was rigid against hers, hot and unyielding. You're shaking, he noted. Of course I am. She tried to pull away to make sense of anything, but he held her firmly. Don't, he said quietly. The word wasn't a threat. It was protection. Possession. Reassurance. I've got you, he murmured. Just stay behind me. They reached the end of the corridor. A heavy metal door blocked the way. J1 punched a code with one hand, still keeping her shielded with the other. The door clicked open. Dim light. Narrow stairs. A path only someone like him would know existed. He pushed her through first. Go. What if they catch us? They won't. Not tonight. She stared at him, breathless and terrified. But why are you helping me? I'm a stranger. J1's eyes locked onto hers with a depth that made her knees weaken. You're a stranger now, he said, voice low. But you won't stay one. Her heart skipped. Why not? Because I just risked my life for you. That means you're mine to protect until this ends. Her lips parted, stunned. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. And trust me, he whispered, it hasn't even begun. He pulled her down the stairs as the door slammed shut behind them, locking the danger out and locking her fate deeper inside his world. The hidden stairwell rattled as they rushed down. Water dripped from rusted pipes overhead. The air grew colder, tighter, more secret with every step. Amara's legs trembled, her breath uneven. This night felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. But the man pulling her through the darkness. He was the only thing keeping her upright. When they reached the bottom of the stairs, J1 slowed, placing one steady hand at the small of her back. Careful, he murmured. She didn't expect the warmth of his palm, or how grounded it made her feel. They emerged into a dim tunnel that smelled of metal and old seawater. It led to a service exit just outside the docks. Amara stumbled, her heel caught on a crack in the pavement. J1 moved instantly. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him before she could fall. Her hands landed on his chest, feeling the hard rise and fall of his breathing. For a heartbeat, neither moved. He looked down at her, his silver eyes shadowed by the faint glow of the exit sign above them. He wasn't even out of breath. Not a single tremor of panic touched his features. You okay? He asked softly. She swallowed. I don't know. You're safe, he said. His tone wasn't soothing. It was certainty. A promise. A command. But his arm didn't leave her waist. Not right away. It lingered, as if he didn't trust her legs yet. Or himself. Only when footsteps echoed behind them, the intruders, did he gently release her. Stay close. Do not let go of my hand again. He laced his fingers with hers before she could answer, guiding her through the shadows. They pushed through a back door that led straight outside to the loading docks. The cold night air slapped her skin, but J1 tightened his grip, shielding her from the wind as if he could block the whole world with his body. A sleek black motorcycle stood parked under a flickering lamp. She stared at it, stunned. That's yours. He smirked faintly. It's fast, and loud enough to warn anyone who tries following. Then her eyes dropped to the object strapped behind the seat, the smaller version of the same type of metal crate she had fallen onto earlier. Her heart dropped. That's what was under me, she whispered. His face shifted into something unreadable. A mixture of frustration, and something close to protectiveness. That crate, he said quietly, holds items men would kill to control. And tonight. He stepped closer, brushing a stray curl from her cheek. They saw you on it. So now they think you have access to what's inside. She sucked in a sharp breath. So I'm their target? For now. His voice dropped lower, gentler. But you're under my protection. That makes you untouchable. Amara shook her head. No, this isn't my fight. I don't belong in. J1's hand cupped the back of her neck, tilting her head gently so she'd look him in the eyes. You didn't choose this, he said. And you don't have to be strong right now. Her breath hitched. His thumb brushed her jaw in a barely there touch, almost reverent, almost careful. But you do have to trust me. Their faces were close. Too close. Close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath mixing with hers. Can you? He asked. Her lips parted. She didn't trust this world. She didn't trust the danger. But this man. This terrifying, calm, unreadable man. She nodded before she even realized she had. Good, he murmured. He reached for a second helmet, brushed a smudge of dust from it, and placed it gently onto her head. You're coming with me, he said, not as a threat but as a vow. He swung one leg over the motorcycle, then held out his hand. Sit behind me. Her heart pounded as she climbed on, wrapping her arms around him. He reached back briefly, adjusting her grip, pulling her closer until her chest was pressed firmly against his back. Hold tight, he said. His voice was deeper now, rougher. I don't plan on losing you tonight. The engine roared to life. And with her arms around him, her heart synced with his, steady, unshaken, as they sped into the night. The motorcycle stopped in front of a towering glass building overlooking the city, a penthouse disguised as a fortress. Amara stepped off, legs trembling from adrenaline, and from holding onto him so tightly. Jaewon removed his helmet, shaking out his hair. He didn't look at her first. He scanned the area, rooftops, alleys, reflections in car windows, before nodding once. Inside. Quickly. His tone was low, careful. He wasn't commanding her out of arrogance. He was protecting her. She followed him through sliding doors into a private elevator. The moment they were enclosed in the rising box of steel and silence, the air grew thick. Amara clutched her hands together. Her pulse hadn't slowed once since she met him. He didn't look at her yet, but she felt him. The calm. The intensity. The danger that had wrapped itself around her like a second skin. Only when the elevator reached the top floor did he finally turn to her. You're safe now, he said quietly. But his eyes. They said he wasn't entirely convinced. The penthouse. The doors slid open to a breathtaking space. Floor-to-ceiling windows, moonlight pouring in, shadows stretching across marble floors. Dark furniture. Soft lamps. A silent grand piano in the corner. It looked like power lived here. And loneliness. Jaewon walked in first, loosening the top button of his shirt. He didn't turn on all the lights, only one near the window, leaving most of the penthouse in warm shadows. Sit, he said, gesturing toward a low sofa. Amara crossed her arms. I'm not a hostage. His jaw twitched, the smallest sign of irritation. You're not, he said firmly. You're a civilian who fell into a situation men die over every day. Her voice shook. I didn't ask for. You didn't have to. He stepped closer, his gaze locking onto hers. Trouble doesn't ask permission either. Her breath faltered at the intensity of his stare. The panic hits her. Suddenly the room felt too big. Too quiet. Too much. The events replayed in her mind. The chase, the bullets, the crate, the danger she still didn't understand. Her chest tightened. Jaewon noticed instantly. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Breathe, he murmured. I'm trying, everything is spinning. Without touching her, he leaned close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him. Look at me. She did. His voice dropped, deep and slow. You survived. You're here. You're not bleeding. No one's going to burst through that door. His gaze softened, subtly but unmistakably. You're safe because I am here. Her breath steadied. Not because she calmed herself, but because he calmed her. The moment of closeness. She sank onto the sofa, finally letting her body feel how exhausted she was. Jaewon crouched in front of her, elbows resting on his knees. I told you to stay behind me, he said quietly. Yet you tried to run toward danger twice. I was scared, she snapped, voice cracking. I know, he murmured. That's why you should have stayed with me. Their faces were close. Too close again. Every time she looked at him, the world shrank until there was only him. His dark hair, his steady breath, the faint scar on his jaw. Why are you being so calm? She whispered. He blinked, slow and deliberate. Because if I panic, he said, you will fall apart. The honesty in his tone made her stomach flutter. And I can't have that. She tested him. So what am I to you now? She asked softly. A burden? His eyes darkened, not with anger but something else. He sat beside her, the couch dipping under his weight, his thigh brushing hers. You're a complication, he admitted. A very unexpected one. Her lips parted. And complications are bad? For a man like me? He looked out at the city briefly before turning back to her. Yes. He paused. But I don't want this one to leave. Her heart skipped so violently she pressed a hand to her chest. The softest moment yet. She pulled her knees up, hugging them. Why me? She asked quietly. Why risk yourself for someone you don't know? Jaewon leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a moment. When he looked at her again, all the steel in his expression melted into something unsettlingly real. Because when I grabbed your hand, he said slowly, you didn't scream. You didn't freeze. You didn't push me away. He reached up, brushing a loose curl behind her ear, careful, gentle, slow. You trusted me. A beat. And I felt it. Her breath caught. And now, she whispered. His thumb lingered at her jaw, barely touching. Now, he said, voice hushed and honest, I can't walk away from that. The room grew impossibly quiet. He was close enough for her to feel each inhale against her shoulder. Close enough for her to realize that beneath the cold exterior, something warm was calling to her. The hours slipped by in tense, moonlit silence. Amara sat curled on the sofa, staring out at the glowing skyline. Jaewon stood near the window, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other lightly touching his lip as he thought. He hadn't spoken in a while. He just watched the city like he was waiting for it to betray him. She felt the distance between them. Not physical, emotional. He was close enough to touch but miles away in his mind. Finally, Amara shifted. I heard you, she murmured quietly. His eyes flickered toward her but he said nothing. I heard you arguing with someone on the phone, earlier. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Eavesdropping isn't safe, he replied. It was impossible not to hear, she shot back. You said they would hunt me. You said I was involved now. A muscle flexed in his cheek, that same subtle tell she'd begun to recognize as frustration he never let show. You shouldn't worry about that. How can you expect me not to? She whispered. Silence. And then, I'm trying to keep you alive, he said quietly. Isn't that enough? No, she said, standing. Not when I don't understand what's happening. He turned fully toward her. For once, that cold, controlled mask slipped. Just a little. His lieutenant arrives. The elevator suddenly hummed. Jaewon's posture snapped straight. Stay behind me, he whispered. The doors slid open and a man stepped out, tall, sharp-eyed, wearing a tactical jacket. Jaewon relaxed by a fraction. Hyun-suk, he greeted. The lieutenant looked Amara over with a mixture of curiosity and concern. She's the one. Yes, Jaewon answered. Hyun-suk exhaled hard. You know what this means. Once they think she's tied to the crate, they'll assume she's leverage. Amara froze. Leverage? Hyun-suk lowered his voice, clearly not enough. They'll try to grab her to control you. Amara felt her stomach twist. He wasn't just saying she was in danger. He was saying she was now a weapon in a war she didn't understand. Jaewon's glare cut the air like a blade. Say another word, he growled, and you won't be leaving this penthouse tonight. Hyun-suk dipped his head. My mistake. But before he left, he shot Jaewon a grim glance. You're breaking your own rule, he murmured. The elevator doors closed. The confrontation. Amara wrapped her arms around herself. Your own rule? She whispered. He didn't answer. Jaewon. He looked at her then, completely, fully. Tension rippled between them. What rule? She demanded. He walked toward her slowly. Measured. Careful. Like he was approaching a wounded animal, or someone he couldn't bear to push away. To never get involved with civilians, he said quietly. To never let my personal life interfere with business. He paused. To never care. Her heart jumped. And now? She asked softly. He looked away. The silence was thick. The secret breaks free. If they think you matter to me, he finally said, they'll come harder. Faster. Without mercy. The words landed between them like a strike. Matter to you? She echoed. His eyes lifted back to hers. Serious. Honest. Unprotected. You do, he confessed. Her breath caught. For a second her pulse drowned out the city noise. And that's the problem, he added. No, she whispered, stepping closer. It's only a problem if you keep pretending you don't feel anything. He stiffened, the truth hitting deeper than she expected. She continued softly. You risked your life for me. You brought me here. You're standing between me and men with guns. That's not indifference. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. Instead, he leaned in slightly, not touching her, but close enough that her skin tingled from the proximity. You don't understand what it means, he murmured. To matter to a man like me. Then explain it, she said. He cupped her face gently as if afraid she'd break. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, soft, slow, breath-stealing. It means I will burn down cities, he whispered, to keep you breathing. Her lips parted. His forehead lowered to hers, just barely touching. It means, he continued, voice trembling with feeling he didn't want to admit, there is nothing I won't do, nothing I won't destroy, for you. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure he could hear it. Jaewon, she breathed. But he stepped back suddenly, ripping himself out of the moment as if it scared him. Get some rest, he whispered. We'll talk in the morning. He walked past her, shoulders rigid, trying to rebuild the calm wall she'd cracked open without trying. As he disappeared down the hallway, she touched her cheek where his hand had been. Warm, steady, dangerous. She realized something then. He wasn't just protecting her. He was protecting himself from what he felt for her. Rain hammered the city like a warning. Inside the penthouse, the world felt disturbingly calm, the kind of silence that always arrives just before something breaks. Amara had been half asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket J1 had found for her. Moonlight smeared across the floor, the skyline glittered, indifferent. For a short, hollow moment she allowed herself to believe they were safe. Then the first explosion ripped the illusion apart. Glass shattered and a shockwave rolled through the apartment. Lamps toppled. The piano's notes died in the chaos. Alarms screamed somewhere below. The city answered with distant sirens, but here the danger felt immediate. Footsteps pounding up the stairs shouted Korean commands, the metallic bark of weapons. J1 was already on his feet. "Stay low," he snapped. No tremor in his voice, only the steel she'd seen before. But now it was threaded with urgent fear. He pulled Amara down behind the sofa before she could bolt. The world narrowed to the smell of smoke and the taste of iron. They heard the door give. Men flooded into the penthouse, masked and precise, professionals who knew exactly what they were looking for. "Under me," J1 ordered, pressing himself over her body. His chest was solid and hot against her back. His arm hooked around her, anchoring her in place. The motion was protective and automatic, a shield. "Do not move," he breathed into her hair. Bullets hammered into furniture a few feet away. Splinters flew. One round sliced into the marble by the sofa with a sound like thunder. A lamp exploded, showering warm glass across the room. Amara's hands clung to J1's shirt until her knuckles hurt. He didn't panic. He didn't shout. He breathed with a terrifying calm, an oceanic stillness beneath devastating waves. Every muscle in him was wired for movement, but he refused to let the danger show her in a way that would break her. Footsteps approached closer. A shadow crossed the doorway, a silhouette bent to search the room. J1's fingers tightened on her waist, then slid to her face, tilting it up with a gentleness that contradicted the violence around them. "Amara," he said, barely more than a whisper. "Look at me." She forced her eyes upward to his. Even in that frenzy he kept his gaze on her, a fixed anchor. The silver gray of his eyes was sharp, and for a second she saw something raw and human in them that the city's rumors never showed. "Stay under me. Breathe only when I tell you to breathe," he ordered. She obeyed, because she trusted the man whose body was a wall between her and the men with guns. There was a pause, an eternity measured in heartbeats, then the sound of bodies searching, curses under breath, heavy boots on marble. A masked man swept a flashlight across the room and froze when it hit them. He raised his weapon. J1 moved like a man born to violence. Not brash, not reckless, precise. He rolled, pulling Amara with him, using his weight to throw the searcher off balance. The gunman's weapon skittered across the floor. A punch, a knee, a controlled snap, and the intruder was down before he could yell. Noise erupted again, someone firing a warning shot, glass raining from the windows. J1 shoved a cushion into Amara's lap and then placed a hand over her mouth to muffle any gasps. Her breath hitched against his palm. Her heartbeat was loud enough to drown out the rest of the chaos. At one point, a masked man lunged toward them. J1 intercepted, taking the blow on his shoulder as he twisted, using the attacker's momentum to send him crashing into a toppled lamp. J1's shirt tore at the seam, a smear of blood flecked across his collarbone. She wanted to reach for him, to touch him, to make sure he was real. He pressed his forehead to hers for the briefest instant, as if to reassure himself and her at once. "Stay under me," he whispered again, urgency raw in the smallness of his voice. "Don't look. Don't move." The firefight felt like an assault from every angle. The intruders moved like a tide, then like retreating fish as Hyun-suk's voice cut through the chaos, distant but unmistakable. One of J1's men had responded elsewhere in the building. The attackers cursed, regrouped, then began to withdraw with the same efficiency they'd come with. When the last footstep retreated, the noise abated like someone turning a faucet off. The penthouse lay in shredded quiet. J1 didn't release his hold immediately. He kept his body curved over hers, as if afraid that letting go would allow the world to reopen its teeth. Finally, when he was reasonably certain they were alone, he eased off and sat back on his heels, pulling Amara into his lap as if she were the most fragile thing alive. Her hands trembled, his did too, but only a little. He kept her close, holding her like he was trying to stop the aftershocks from reaching her. She could taste smoke and copper on his skin. He smelled of rain and something antiseptic, a scent that now meant protection. "You could have been killed," she said, voice raw. "So could you," he replied shortly. Then softer, "And I won't let that happen." Her fingers traced the torn edge of his shirt where the blood had soaked through. She touched it with the careful curiosity of someone who was suddenly allowed into a private, dangerous life. His breath hitched. He didn't pull away. Instead, he bowed his head until his forehead rested against hers. Amara, he murmured. I should have told you sooner. Told me what? She asked, though in her chest she felt the answer forming. That when you sat on that crate, it wasn't just an object. His voice went thin as the memory of that night returned. It pushed a door open I didn't know I had. It made me notice what I'd stopped noticing about myself. She swallowed. You mean? She started. He pressed his lips to her temple, a silent, trembling confession. I noticed you. Her throat closed. Everything in her was raw and exposed, but strangely steadier now because he had said it aloud. He drew back to look at her, eyes bright with a fierce light. I don't know how to be anything other than what this city made me, he said. But tonight I chose you first. That changes things. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. For once, fear didn't rule the moment. Something else, fierce, fragile, did. She reached up, cupped his cheek and kissed him. Not the long claim of lovers, but a small, deliberate seal of shared survival. He answered with an intensity that frightened and thrilled her at once, an urgency that spoke of vows and violence and the cost of both. Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper. Inside, two people sat in the wreckage of a violent night and discovered that the thing that saved them both was not a weapon or a plan, it was each other. The penthouse was quiet after the chaos, too quiet. Fire alarms blinked uselessly in the damaged ceiling. Rainwater crept through the shattered windows, pooling on the marble floor like silver tears. Hyunsuk's men swept the place, clearing rooms, updating Kang Jae-won in quick, clipped Korean. He nodded, answered once or twice, but his attention kept snapping back to Amara. She stood near the balcony, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the city she almost died in. The wind carried the cold scent of wet concrete and danger that wasn't fully gone. Jae-won walked toward her slowly, each step measured, not like the Mafia king everyone feared, but like a man approaching someone he didn't want to lose. Amara. She didn't turn immediately. She was trying not to shake, trying to be strong, trying to pretend what had happened hadn't carved its mark into her bones. When she finally looked at him, her eyes were glassy but determined. You saved me tonight, she said. But you also scared me tonight. His jaw tightened, pain flickering across his expression. Because of the attack, he asked quietly, or because of me? She hesitated. That told him everything. A storm passed through his eyes, regret, protectiveness, something deeper he kept swallowing down. He moved closer, slowly, like a man asking permission with every inch. I told you to sit tight that night, he murmured, because I knew once you were close, I wouldn't be able to keep my distance. Her heart stumbled. The balcony light softened his features. The cut on his brow, the dark scruff on his jaw, the seriousness etched into every line of his face. Jae-won, she whispered, you keep saying things like that and then acting like you didn't mean them. He exhaled long and heavy. That's because I don't know how to want someone without putting them in danger. His voice dropped rough and low. And you are the only thing I've wanted in years. Her breath caught. He stepped even closer, now inches away. The air between them warmed, pulsed, thickened. When you sat on that crate, and I realized what you were sitting on. He shook his head, almost laughing at himself. It wasn't the object. It was you. The way you breathed. The way you trusted me without knowing it. His voice broke slightly. It woke something up in me that I thought was long dead. He lifted a hand but froze halfway, waiting. Amara closed the distance herself, pressing her forehead to his chest. He inhaled sharply. His hand finally slid to her waist, settling warm and steady. Amara, look at me. She lifted her face. What she saw made her throat tighten. He wasn't hiding anymore. I can't lose you, he said. Not to my enemies. Not to my mistakes. Not to my silence. His thumb brushed her cheek. When I covered you tonight, when I felt you under me, I realized something terrifying. What? She breathed. That I'd burn this entire city before I let anything happen to you. Her lips parted, breath trembling. And that's the problem, he added softly. She stared at him. Why is that a problem? Because it means you're not just under my protection. He leaned his forehead to hers. You're under my skin. Her knees almost buckled. The words hung between them, electric and undeniable. Wind swept across the balcony, tugging at her hair and his torn shirt. Somewhere in the distance, police sirens wailed faintly. But up here, the city felt like it was holding its breath. Tentatively, she placed her hand over his heartbeat. It thudded hard beneath her palm. Jae-won, she whispered, I'm scared too. But not of you. Her voice softened. I'm scared of how much I'm starting to feel. His eyes flickered, shock, relief, hunger, restraint, all fighting inside him. Then, slowly, deliberately, he pulled her closer until she fit against him. You feel it too, he whispered. I do. His breath hitched. Her fingers curled into his shirt, and something in him finally snapped, not in violence but in surrender. He cupped her face with both hands, lowered his forehead to hers, and let out the softest, most broken confession. "Then don't run from me." "I wasn't planning to," she whispered. The tension between them finally dissolved, not in fire but in warmth. He kissed her forehead first, then the corner of her cheek, then her jaw. Slow, reverent touches, the kind a man gives when he's scared it might be the only time he gets to show what he feels. When their lips finally met, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It wasn't dangerous. It was inevitable. A seal. A promise. A surrender. The city lights flickered below them as if bowing to a new truth. When they pulled apart, Amara whispered, "So what happens now?" Kang Jae-won rested a hand against her spine and answered with the quiet certainty of a man who had finally stopped fighting his heart. "Now, you stay close." His lips brushed her temple. "And I protect what's mine."